Okay, Embase. So in order to find it, we're going to go to library.louisville.edu/Kornhauser, and we're going to go to top links, Embase. Embase is an Elsevier database. It's got a lot of overlap with PubMed, so if you're using both of them, you need to make sure you consolidate your results in a single EndNote library and deduplicate, because there will be a lot of redundancy otherwise. But Embase is broader and includes things like conference abstracts that aren't indexed in PubMed. Now, like PubMed and CINAHL, it has a system of controlled vocabulary. Unfortunately, like the other two, it has to be different. So, of course, there is an entirely separate system. You can't use mesh terms or CINAHL subject headings in Embase. They have their own system. It's called the M tree, and it's up here. I do think, however, that it's very good. I think it's better than the other two in terms of the selection of terms that are available and what you can do with them, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So again, we're going to look at chlorhexidine bathing for the prevention of hospital-acquired infections in critically ill patients. So one term at a time, let's do the same thing. Chlorhexidine. We have our options, any that says use and then refers to another term saying if you want to do this, use this. So the actual terms we have to choose from are acetate, gluconate, and then just chlorhexidine itself. Let's use that. And we have this tree-like structure, which is similar to the way that mesh is organized. And anything that is more deeply indented further to the right is going to be more specific. Anything that's less deeply indented further to the left is going to be less specific. Over here we have synonyms for a given term, and then we have options to extend the search. By default it will say /exp, which is for explode, and as in mesh and CINAHL, what this means is include anything below it in the hierarchy. For this term, doesn't make a difference because there is nothing below it in the hierarchy, but if we were looking at disinfectant agent, then explode would mean include all of the disinfectant agents that are below it in the hierarchy, of which there are many. All of these would be included by doing that. But for chlorhexidine, it's not going to make a difference. However, one thing we can do is say explosion and all synonyms, and that will then include all of these under the hood. They won't appear in the search string, but they will be included in the search. And just by doing that, we end up with 9,000 more results. It was 25,000 just with the default, another 9,000 by including all the synonyms. So, be careful that the synonyms are all things that you want to search for, but in this instance, they're all usable as synonyms for chlorhexidine, so we're going to include them. So show results. And then it will appear, let's get rid of that, then it will appear here, and the syntax is very concise. It's just chlorhexidine, SYN, include all of the synonyms as well as exploding, and that's all it takes. That's that one done. Back to the M tree. Now let's look for bathing. Use bath. Now this is a bit different because it's not at the top of the hierarchy and I don't want to include these, so we just want bath. So we don't want to explode in all synonyms. I do want to include some of these synonyms. I don't want hydroelectric bath or walk-in bath, but the others I do want to use. So what we're instead going to do is say index term, and what that means is just search for stuff that has this term here in its metadata. Don't search for stuff that has specifically this or this without this. So just stuff that is marked as related to bath. And we want to also include some, but not all of these synonyms. We're going to have to do that manually, but we can use the copy function here and then add the term to the query builder, there it is, or and paste in the synonyms, and then we can just get rid of the ones we don't want. So don't want hydroelectric bath, don't want walk-in bath, and there it is. So again, we added to query builder with /de, so it's just going to search for this specific term, and then the list of keywords that we've chosen. Show results. So there it is. Back to the M tree. Critically ill patients. Here we are to the bottom of the hierarchy, so explosion doesn't matter. Critically ill patient, both relevant, so let's say explosion and all synonyms, because again, explosion doesn't matter, but we do want to include both of these. Show results. There it is, there's our third query. Okay, finally, back to the M tree. Hospital-acquired infections. Hospital-acquired infection. Hospital infection, there we go. And we have hospital-acquired pneumonia underneath. Not relevant in this case, so we don't want to explode because we don't want to include that. I do want to include some, but not all of these synonyms. So again, what we're going to do, let's get rid of what's in the query builder. So what we want to do is say index term, which is going to search for hospital infection, but isn't going to search for hospital-acquired pneumonia, just hospital infection. And then we're going to say add to query builder, and there it is. And then we're going to copy the synonyms as we did for bath. Say or and paste. Now I don't want nursery ward infection or ward infection because we're dealing with critically ill patients. I don't want infection, nursery ward either, or that extra or, but I do want the rest of these. And show results. And there it is. Now, to combine, it's very straightforward. We just want to combine all of these with AND. So we're going to say select and combine using AND, which is the default. Hit the combine button. And there it is, 14 results, as opposed to the hundreds of thousands we had previously. So there it is. Now, with 14 results, you might not want to filter down any further, but if you did want to filter down, if you had hundreds of results or were only interested in a specific time scale or whatever it may be, you may wish to use the filters. So we have the date filter up here. You can select which publication years you want to refine to. Do not use the records added to Embase. That relates to when the records appeared in this database, not when the relevant articles were published. Use publication years. And then hit search to update the search. Or we can filter by age, potentially. There's no just all adults, but you can have both 18 to 64 and 65 plus if you want. And then hit the apply button to add any filters that you've selected here. Same with gender, potentially, or study types. If you wanted to look at specifically clinical studies, systematic reviews, again, you can select multiple of these. So if you wanted to look at RCTs and systematic reviews, for example, and then scroll back up, hit apply, or scroll down and hit apply. Publication types, if you didn't want to include conference abstracts or notes, then you could refine to just articles, clinical trials, etc. Those are the main ones that will be useful to you. And languages. You can filter to English and any other listed languages that you happen to speak. And then hit search to apply the filters. Once you've got the results set that you want, you can export them by selecting this box here, which will select all of the results. Now with 14, that's all of them and it's done. if you have more than 25, then you're going to need to select the actual number from this drop down here where it says select number of items, because by default it's only going to select the first page, and pages come in batches of 25. So for 14 it doesn't make a difference, but if you've got more than 25 results, just check that this number here, the number of results, matches this number here, which is the number you've selected. And if not, go into this drop down menu and find the right number. Then once you've got all of them selected, say export. RAS format mentally EndNote, that's the one you want because you want to be able to load it into EndNote. Hit export. Pause for effect. And then hit download. And that's that done. Close that window. If you want to save your search history so that you can run it again in future, you can select all of the queries here and say export. CSV will put it in a format you can put into Excel, and then you'll have it all laid out in this tabular format, but in an Excel document, and then you can just copy it back into Embase when you want to. Say export and download.